Welcome to Safe Doesn't Scale. I'm your host, David Walsh, founder of Limelight. This show is for marketing and growth leaders with a chip on their shoulder who are tired of playing it safe. I'm excited. I've got Thibaut on the podcast today. Thibaut and I have known each other for quite a while. I reached out to him 2+ years ago, 2.5, maybe even 3 years ago now, as he was one of the bigger influencers on LinkedIn. And I said, you have to learn, tell me a little bit more about influencer marketing on LinkedIn. And then you became an advisor to Limelight. And now you've launched, your own agency and you're managing, I don't know how many creators now, but it seems to be growing daily. Thibaut, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, David. And I think it was more than 3 years. We feel like it was just yesterday that we met, but I think it's something 3-4 years actually.
Nice. Well, for those that don't know, Thibaut has 44,000 followers on LinkedIn. He currently reps some of the biggest sales creators on LinkedIn. He is deep in influencer marketing on LinkedIn. Tell us, why did you start the Sales Creator Collective?
So it was by mistake. So I've been a sales trainer and coach for, I think, 7-8 years. And I had been kind of documenting my journey in 2019 before LinkedIn was something that people were thinking of. And on the process, I just got some customers and everything and started coaching people. And I got in touch with a lot of creators by building my following. And in July, end of July, beginning of August 2025 last year, I organized a sales creator content party in Berlin. And my goal was simple. I just wanted to go back to my friend to Berlin, organize a party, and I didn't want to pay. So I was like, hey, let's invite some creators, get some sponsors. And so that's what we did. And while I was doing that, all the creators were always telling me that they had difficulties getting brand deals. They were getting lowball. So they were having issues understanding how to maximize the money they could make. And I thought, hey, I've been doing this for 3 years. And instead of just selling for me, I could sell for all the other creators. And so I kind of started with 1 or 2 creators. And now we're like almost 70, 9 months later.
Wow.
So it's been going pretty well. And we closed, north of, I think, $700,000 since we started. So it's been going pretty well.
Man, that's amazing. I hadn't catched up. We were just before we hit record. I was like, when did we last chat? Because I've been following the journey since you launched. $700,000 in a very short amount of time. And I think we have lots of, mutual interests. I think we think of marketing the same way in B2B, right? It's now personality led, products are very much a commodity and features. There's a lot of feature parity. So how do you stand out from the crowd? Using influencers to help grow your audience and have them as spokespeople to your brand is a new way to capture attention and to drive awareness and revenue. Very impressed. 700K to influencers. You must feel excited about that number. I feel like influencers need talent agents, right? They're so busy doing their own thing that when a brand reaches out to them, they're not very good at negotiating. So tell us, well, how does it typically go for you, right? Like you're managing 70 influencers right now, bring us behind the scenes a little bit. Like how are things working today and what's the general process of how you get introduced to the brand and when?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's always evolving. It's kind of a big, messy machine. I'm working with Sophia, who's my head of creator partnerships, and Sad, who's my head of operation. So we're all working remotely. And basically what we do is that our job is not so much to be a brand agency, which is what you see very commonly where brand goes to an agency. They say, we have this amount of money, find us some creators. My job is to be more of a talent agent. So think about Hollywood agent. That's pretty much what I'm doing. So a brand will reach out to a creator and the creator will introduce me as their agent. And what I'll do, I'll understand what the brand is looking for, what they're trying to do, what are their goals, understand what are their budgets, timeline, all these different things that are important for their campaign. And my job is really to make sure that we align, the creator is aligned with the brand and other creators also can comment on the campaign, make sure that the compensation is good, that we have the right payment for usage right, that when there's exclusivity, we're compensated for that. So a lot of kind of contractual and things that are, not so fun to talk about, or when creators are reached out by a company, a brand, they often have a full-time job, so they don't want to think about that. So that's what I'm focusing on. And it's been super nice because the industry is so new that there's no rules as such. There's no, you pay X% for exclusivity or whatever. So my job has been to push the limit so creators are paid the most they can be, and the brands are actually finding the right creators for them.
Well, that's amazing. So, firstly, like managing all of these influencers and negotiating on their behalf, making sure that they get paid the right amount of money and that there's alignment between the brand and the creator makes a ton of sense. What are your perspective? Do you think that creators undercharge or overcharge? And how do you manage that scenario in which a brand wants to pay them, let's just say like $200 a post, and the creator expects $1,000 a post? How do you bridge that gap? And are you sometimes talking creators down from their numbers? And I'm curious, what your role is there, or do you just default to whatever the influencer decides, that's how much they're getting paid?
It's a very dynamic thing. So the good thing with influencer or B2B influencer marketing is that it's a completely unregulated market, or it's a bit regulated, but with more, disclose that you're being paid, all these kind of things. So there's no kind of set rate. And for me, I love it because I've always loved selling and being at the middle of the market. So sometimes you have brands that reach out and they have crazy low expectations. So the job here is to disqualify them, not so much to be like, hey, so you can try, but at some point they want to spend $200 when someone should be paid 2,000. It just doesn't work. So for your first question was, are they overcharging or undercharging? Undercharging is the answer. You've published recently a kind of a study, a white paper.
Yeah, last week.
Yeah. And it was like I saw that the remuneration was going up because the ROI is absolutely crazy. Like what you get with a campaign with creators, the return on investment is really massive compared to ads. So that's the thing. They're undercharging typically. And so it's just offer and demand. So sometimes you have crazy phases where everyone wants to work with creators. That's where we double prices. We say, hey, it's more expensive, and we find who's going to pay the most. And also the alignment with the creator. Sometimes we accept deals that are smaller because the creator wants to work with the company, the brand. And sometimes creators just don't have anything. So we're typically able to reduce the price to actually make sure that they get something. So it's very dynamic, and it's all based on offer and demand. So it's just like, I think it's the invisible hand, they call that, the Adam Smith. That's pretty much
Yeah.
what it is. So my job is to help figure what's the good deal, and also try to make sure that my creators are aligned with the brand they're working with. And also that sometimes they realize that their impressions or the performance are down. So they have to accept lower prices because it's better than, just, refusing a deal.
Yeah. I mean, when I started influencer marketing and the Limelight, I was like, nobody had built the infrastructure that powers this, and creators had no idea how much to charge, and brands had no idea how much to pay. And so the report that you're mentioning is it's our second year doing this, right? It's collecting all of this data of how much influencers are getting paid from brands and creating transparency, right? And creating benchmarks. So it's a pricing benchmarks for influencers in 2026. And the response to that is really positive. Selfishly, I'm going to tell you something behind the scenes, just so you're aware. Like, my goal in a marketplace is supply and demand, right? Get enough brands, enough creators. And I think our incentive is to get the brands to reach out to the influencers so that a transaction can happen. So if the prices are way too high, brands don't often reach out as much, right? So we have to find the right balance of like, how do we skew pricing expectations just enough that it will attract a brand and then allow the influencer to negotiate up, right? So that's how we think about pricing. It's like marketplace dynamics. How do we get the transaction to happen? Because nothing will happen if somebody doesn't reach out in the first place. So if the brand is going to reach out, we want to make sure the price isn't the floor price and it isn't insulting to the influencer, but it's enough to get them excited and get them to, respond back. And so it's been fun kind of building that infrastructure. But I'll be honest with you, we're 2.5 years into this. Brands have no idea how much to pay, and creators have no idea how much to charge. It's not changing. Yeah. It constantly is like a challenge for folks. You think about marketing on LinkedIn, stepping back for a sec, people that watch this, right? They're usually heads of marketing, mid-sized companies. They're thinking about influencer marketing. They haven't really set it up yet. They want to dip their toe in, but they need to prove that it works to, their higher ups to unlock budget. I think the question to start off with for you, because you're managing lots of these relationships, is what's working right now with influencer marketing? What are you seeing perform the best, and what can people replicate?
So what's working is definitely commitment. So it's very hard for brands that are just getting started because when you're like, hey, so it's great if you spend 100K a month in creator, in influencer marketing, they're just like, wow, I'm not sure. It's like not that they don't have the money, but why would you switch all your budget from ads to that? Because without things. So one thing that brands want is to find creators who are going to be loyal to them. So basically, work with one brand in the category. And what creators want is stability with the brand, where they know that they're going to be paid well, treated well, and that they can have a long contract because they have more stability. So that's what, everyone's aligned on this. But typically to get started, for me, what I found works extremely well is to do 3 months contracts. So the classic is one post on LinkedIn per month for 3 months. So it gives a good idea of how the creator will perform for the brand. And it's not a huge investment as such. And when this works well, let's say you have 20 creators on a campaign, there's like, I don't know, 5 that works extremely well, 10 that work okay, and 5 that don't work. You skip the 5 that don't work. You renew the 5 that work extremely well for 6 to 12 months with a high rate. And the one is in the middle. That's where my job is to make sure that people are aligned. So this works extremely well. And another kind of sneaky thing that brands don't do is affiliate links. So, partner stacks, all these things that allow you to create partnership programs. That's one thing that everyone sleeps on, where it's a really good way to see the return on investment of a brand, of a campaign. And so for me, I was working with a sales and engagement platform for 2 years, like was back in the day. They made $200,000, but thanks that we could track thanks to my affiliate link. And so they paid me 20, so they made 10x on the investment.
So let me ask you about that, because that's fascinating, right? For a lot of folks that are leaning into this, right? I actually join sales calls weekly these days, and half the time the people come with a preconceived notion that links don't work on LinkedIn. Oh, we heard that links don't work on LinkedIn. If you put them in your post, it's going to get squashed, and we just can't add links, so it's not measurable. And then they come with this very negative approach of influencers not measurable. You're saying the opposite, right? You're saying adding links helps track performance and drive real revenue. Is that what you're bringing to market with a lot of these brands? Are you encouraging them to include links? And if so, what are some of the ways in which they should consider using influencers and links? Is it every single post? And tell us a little bit more.
Yeah. So it's a bit more green the gray zone in that. If you go and you have 20 influencers or 200 influencers, you're like, I'm going to pay each influencer to do one LinkedIn post on the same day, like a LinkedIn takeover. And they can all are going to put links in their profile. The chances that this is going to do anything is really low. It's just going to not perform because if one big push one day and you put the links. My thing is when you work long term with creators, it's typically working better because you do, let's say, one post a month. On a few posts, you can put a link, but also with creators who have newsletters or other platforms, Substack is one thing that just like blows up like crazy. Your job is to do, or one thing that works extremely well is a content bundle where you create a long form piece of content that can be a webinar, that can be a video. So if we take this podcast we're having right now, we could turn that into a video, a blog post, a lead magnet, which is kind of a thing where like top 10 things to do for influencer marketing or something like that. And then the creator can promote this specific asset on LinkedIn. And in the asset, you have a ton of affiliate links. So people go from, hey, I'm curious about something to actually going into the long form content, reading that, clicking on the link and potentially signing up. And so I've done this for many brands, and that's a good way of using links. So if you just go to a LinkedIn post, drop a link in there, that's not going to work. But if you have a long-term strategy where you create, you could call that content pillars or whatever, this typically works much better because there's so much more depth to your content. You're not just like taking a face, you're actually working and building content with the creator. So I found that's kind of a good way where you integrate your affiliate links.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's really insightful. For logistically wise, do you manage the influencer links? Like, do you manage the creation of those links, or do you allow the brand to use whatever system they want to do to create the links? And then how do you actually get that data back, or do you just rely on the brand to share that data, a few weeks or a few months later?
So what we do is we typically work with the systems of the brand, and you just gave me an idea, which is just to refer a partner stack to all the brands that don't have their affiliate program yet. So good one. But yeah, on this, that's kind of like the bottom of the funnel for this. But my head of creator partnerships, Sophia, She's taking care of tracking all the impressions, the draft process, all these things. So what we do is we take between 7 and 10 days after posting, we collect the impressions, create a report, and share this kind of in real time with the brands. So that's kind of what we take care of. We just make sure that the brand just doesn't sign a contract and then we're out. We really make sure that the creators are putting their draft, changing their draft, posting on the right time, sharing their impressions, and nobody. It's a lot harder than it looks, because once creators are paid, they're just like, yeah, fine, I got the money, I'm out. So yeah, we're doing a lot of babysitting.
No, I understand that more than anyone, I would say. Tell me, what's your favorite campaign that you've seen recently? Tell us a little bit about one of the campaigns that come to mind that was like memorable, and tell us why.
So I think one of my favorite campaign was one we run with Lovable. Why was it amazing? Because Lovable is such a great brand. I've built so much stuff with Lovable, and the creators were doing videos. It was a bit challenging because there was a lot of different things we had to kind of align with videos, but this was a great example of how you build something with a creator, a face that's kind of famous on the world, in our world, and how they built, and use Lovable for building that. So this one was really a cool campaign, because it was just we worked with an agency that was a brand agency. We're like a talent agency, and so that's kind of like one of the first campaigns where I understood that the brand agencies on the other side are not really competitors of mine. We're just more partners, and it's the first time that I don't really have any. I have competitors, but they represent other creators, so it's not like we're fighting all the time, because the brands, they don't just want one person; they want like a specific outcome. And like, we're really not fighting that much compared to picking one platform over the other when you're selling
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
I think that's resonates a lot with me, right? Where you've got a perfect creator fit product, right? There is authentic stories that can get engagement, that are exciting and interesting to audiences, that creators can amplify, so they can tell stories about solving problems using that product, and it will get engagement because it's lovable, right?
Yeah,
It's like a
exactly.
perfect scenario. Tell me, I've got a random question, but you've got 70 mouths to feed, essentially, right? 70 people are relying on Thibaut and his team to deliver these brand partnerships each week, each month. How do you make sure everyone gets fed?
So that's a growing pain, as you expect. So life is a normal, I don't know how you call this, but this bell-shaped curve, where you have 20% of whatever brings you 80% of your result. And this is no exception. So 20% of my creators bring me 80% of revenue, and all the rest is split between, like the 80% that remain. So we've been in situations where expectations were not met, because people were working with us, and they expected that we would just like have a constant flow of opportunities. And so one thing I've learned is that my job is not so much to bring up opportunities to everyone, but to find people who are creative and have like a really good audience fit, and help them monetize. So my ICP, you could think, is a creator who has like a full-time job, doesn't really know how to send an invoice, because that's very simple. You know how to send invoices, but a lot of people, they have no clue how to send an invoice. So this is where we help a lot, because we negotiate really well for them. They got a lot of inbound requests that come, so we make sure that they don't sell themselves short. And so the kind of short answer is that, yeah, some people are not fed as they want. And so our job is to divide how we work with creators. And so we've created a tier system where we have our MVPs, our core, and then our emerging creators. And so typically the MVPs are the ones we spend the most time on. The core is where we actually try to balance. So Sophia is taking care of them a lot. We help them, and the idea is to move as many of these people to MVP. And the emerging are the ones where it's a bit harder to find opportunities for them. So we still find them, but we tell them, hey, we actually, full disclosure, we want to make sure that we share opportunities when they come, but we're not like actively doing some outbounds for you specifically. And so that's kind of like what we're working on. And so it's been working pretty well. So, but obviously when you have 70 people, there's always a few who are not super happy.
Yeah, of course, right? I can definitely understand that. I'm curious what you think of the industry and how it's evolved and where it's going, right? I believe, and I know you probably believe this too, right? Is that we're at the very early innings. It's like penetration is 5% of the total amount of brands that be doing influencer marketing. I think it's 5%, maybe a little more, but probably
Mhm.
5. I think it's going to explode, right, these next 3 years because everybody is craving new marketing channels. Consumers are learning about products in different ways, and a brand sees their competitors doing it and then is like, why aren't we doing that? We need to do that immediately, right? Where do you see the industry in 12 months from now, right? And I know that's a broad question,
Yeah.
but like, tell me, bring me inside the behind the curtains as you talk to these influencers and you talk to these brands. What do you think? Where do you think the industry is going in 12 months from now?
So historically, if you look at the who started and became successful with this in terms of brands, the data enrichment platform. You all know who they are. They are all working with influencers and they're just pouring crazy ton amounts of money at that. So the problem is data enrichment is a very small part subset of B2B sales or B2B influencer. So the
Mm.
thing I'm seeing is that we're gonna have a bit of like other channels that are gonna kind of bleed into this thing. For me, for example, I'm having tomorrow a conversation with a really famous real estate, like luxury real estate agency network. So where I live in San Miguel, and so they're really one of the top three, basically. And they want to know like how can we use influencers on LinkedIn to sell our houses. And so that's the
Mm.
thing where you're gonna have a cross between the hey, I'm a sales guy to hey, I've been doing sales and now I've been super successful, President's Club, whatever. So all these sales people, if you think about it, specifically about sales, they're pretty rich now, or pretty rich. They just make a lot of money, and so there's good of investment opportunities, or they are the people in the market to buy luxury houses or luxury apartments. So I think there's going to be this kind of bleed between the sales tools and then the more kind of lifestyle things that relate to these people. So golf tournament. I know you're a big golfer, so we should actually do a sales creator collective and Limelight golf tournament with creators. So that's kind of these things where this is where I'm seeing this barely start in 12 months. That's what I'm kind of seeing. And
Mm.
there's definitely, there was a recent one which was Salesforce and Live Golf. I don't know how it worked, but that was a good way of introducing Live Golf and Salesforce to each other to audiences. So I think that this is what's gonna happen in 12 months.
You said a couple of things that are super interesting, right? One is early to market brands will scoop up the best influencers and be working with the best influencers and have built trusted relationships that will then become their unique competitive advantage, right? Is that they've got the people with the real influence in the industry promoting their product, mostly because their product is good and
Yeah.
the creators are happy to talk about it. I think that's a really important insight is if you're not early to this, you're going to be end up competing with the
Yeah.
people in your industry and your competitors who are already built the relationships. Number two, I think in-person events and in-person marketing, traditional marketing in any means, right? Whether it's events, billboards, activations at, in conferences, etc. I think can all be dramatically amplified digitally by creators and influencers. And I think that's something that a lot of brands are starting to realize is that, let's say 40% of their budget is going to traditional channels. When they think about digital, why can't they use digital to amplify that traditional channel? I think that's super insightful. Um, what's the goal for the company and the agency? Like, you're at 70 influencers right now. You know, what's the next 12 months look like? What are some of your core goals internally and what are you focused on?
So my focus is I'm lucky enough to own 100% of the company, no investors, no outside pressure to perform. So I set myself a very simple goal. I think at the end of this year will be between maybe if we perform okay, $1 to $1.2 million of revenue. And if we perform good, can be a lot more. But I want to grow 25% year over year. So in 10 years, we're 10 million. So that's kind of the idea I have. How we going to do that? I think we're going to have to work with less creators, but work in more depth with them. So my goal is one of the goals is like, yeah, in these 10 years, I want to have a few of my creators become millionaires with the revenue they're going to make from brand partnerships we're going to bring to them. So what I know is that the company in 12 months will be extremely different from what it is now. What we're doing is just going to be so different. So my job is to find these creators who have the potential to, go at these events, do some activation, do some sales kickoff also, and just like merge all this world. So that's the type of people. And so one of the vision I have is if you look at Mr. Beast, which is I think one of the influencer that is the most famous and most successful in the world. He has a media company, basically. So I want to be able to create the infrastructure so my creators can actually use the media company or build their own. And so that's kind of the long-term vision that I'm seeing, because the more inventory you have, so look at Corporate Bro, for example. He's a very good example where people pay him $50,000 for doing like a video because the guy has a huge audience. He has a system. He creates like so much content that that's really what I want to build for my creators. And I know it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort, and that's the idea. That's where I'm going.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm a huge believer in what you're doing, and I think it exponentially grows. It's like a snowball, right? Once you've got enough influencers on the roster who are getting brand partnerships, there's this ability to cross-pollinate a brand you meet. You can then say, oh, actually, there's these other influencers that we rep that would be a good fit for this. And if you get with the right influencers from day one and are delivering value for them, they will help you grow the talent agency tremendously. Where do people find out about you? Where should they learn more about Thibaut? How can they get into your ecosystem and learn more about what you do?
So there's two things. There's my LinkedIn profile that I'll share with you. So I'm sure you'll be able to put it somewhere. So yeah, Thibaut Souyris. I think there's only one on LinkedIn. And my website, the Sales Creator. So it's salescreatorcollective.com. I'll share also the link so they can see everything there, what we've done with brands. They can also request to see the roster. So that's how they can hear about me. And I don't have yet a podcast. I used to have one when I was doing sales training, but now I'm just too busy negotiating. So yeah, these two things are the pretty much the places they can see and hear about me.
Awesome. And for creators that are listening to this, right, that are getting brand partnerships or want more brand partnerships and looking for an agent, are you taking on more clients right now?
So I'm always open to discussing with people, and based on their journey and the potential, we always have conversation. And if it works, I can work with them. If not, I tell them, hey, we can't really work, but I'm always really happy to have a call with every creator, have conversations. I even had a call with a guy who's like going to play in the US field hockey team. So not really sales creator, but I'm always happy to have calls and understand like the opportunities we can build together. That's really my job is, make sure that people make money so I can make money in return.
That's awesome. Well, congrats on an exciting journey. And, I think you're onto something huge here. And I just appreciate the work you're doing to support influencers and creators. I appreciate you joining the call and joining the podcast. We'll have to do another one soon. And I'll chat with you offline about this partnership that we're going to build.
Yeah. And thank you so much for having me, David. I think you were one of I remember when you told me about Limelight, I was like, yeah, that sounds like a cool idea and everything. But I think you really had the vision before a lot of people. So I'm very happy we get to work in the same thing now. And it was really great to have to be on the show.
Awesome. All right. Peace.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Safe Doesn't Scale on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. Limelight is the leading AI-powered B2B influencer marketplace and social signals platform. Brands like HubSpot, Webflow, and ZoomInfo use Limelight to power influencer programs at scale. Start your first campaign at limelighthq.com.